Can we move? For some reason the slide's not moving. Can we move to the next slide? Okay. So here's my invitation and challenge to you. So one of the things that we're so interested in was ideas worth spreading and how it translates to ads worth spreading. Now, it's been incredibly interesting to me because I've traveled around the world and somehow advertising has become a word people don't want to use, which I find fascinating. I meet ad agencies who are telling me that they've taken the word advertising out of their title because it's not reflective of where the industry is going. And we're learning about technology and its role in advertising and the ability not only to storytell, but also to play and participate in a brand. So last year, TED started an initiative called Ads Worth Spreading. And it was, how do we value human attention? How do we grab people at that moment to which they connect with an idea and that they're so inspired by what we do that they want to spread it around? Now, interesting, when we launched this initiative, people really focused on the notion of worth. You mean worth? Like, is it worth my time? Is it worthy of an idea? And actually, worth to us stands for human attention. How do we value human attention? So at that notion to which someone watches a TED Talk, and we have created this contagious emotion, what is it that we want to do with it? And what are some ways to explore that? So my invitation to all of you is to participate in this initiative for us, to go out and find interesting video that's not necessarily advertising, but is actually going to define on where advertising is going. And to give you a little bit of inspiration, I'm just going to show you those ads that we focused on last year, which showed us some interesting ways to think about advertising. Can we play the next video?
Ads can be worth spreading for a lot of reasons. They can certainly promote a cause, but they can also be worth spreading just because they're funny or beautiful or really ingenious. If you drop the idea of ambushing people's attention by shoving videos down their throat and instead ask them to view by invitation, you can share an idea.
The Girl Effect is essentially about an adolescent girl at a crucial crossroads in her life.
The short film is the documentation of a global initiative to add color to dull gray spaces in 4 communities around the world.
Target wanted to find an experience that could be both enjoyed by people on the street and also enjoyed by people around the world. So we created a very spectacular fashion show.
I think we tried to just be chroniclers of a miracle. We meet Selena in the opening frames of the commercial and we're told that she has AIDS. And the final title just says, Day 1, the effects of AIDS can be reversed. So you realize you've actually been watching the whole thing backwards.
This is the Detroit you think you know. I think what we set out to do was do a love story to Detroit. All this stuff then became really important to us, so we could basically take someone on a journey of what they thought to what we feel.
This is the Motor City. This is what we do.
How can we take the geographic center of Detroit and actually transpose that into being a heart area wherever you are?
So what we're looking to do for Intel was just elicit some kind of emotion in the audience, because frankly, chips aren't exactly the most thrilling of things.
This was just a real event. This was a real human being who bravely allowed us to come into her life and witness what she was going through.
So the idea for using animation was to give it a more contemporary feel. Also, we could graphically show you statistics. We could slowly reach out and grab you by the heart and really make you feel a part of it.
The idea was to get a rush. Whatever that rush is when you watch something special and you say that was the coolest thing ever and want to tell your friends all about how cool it was because it made you feel a certain excitement and joy.
When you see reaction and you see that people are saying, that's pretty cool, can I be part of it somehow, then you know it works.
I think advertising is going to surprise us. One of the things that will happen with advertising is it will be held more accountable.
I think that the skills that we have as people that work in advertising and marketing for elegant thought processes and interesting ways to solve old problems still massively exist.
It's not about telling people, you're going to buy this thing because I'm going to create this metaphor and I'm going to give you this imagined life. You're going to buy this thing or you're going to buy into this brand because there is a role for this in your life. And when TED launched Ads Worth Spreading, it just felt like, okay, somebody's going to look at it not just as an ad, but as worth spreading.
We thought it was an ad worth spreading, and you know, we wanted to spread it ourselves. So if we wanted to spread it, hopefully other people did too.
So, thank you. So I hope that you'll join us. Our friends at YouTube have been incredibly gracious to create for us a special channel on YouTube that you can upload those videos that you think would be perfect for ads we're spreading. You know, when I thought a lot about this, I thought about all the award shows that were out there and the judging and how it all comes together. And in the spirit of TED, we want you all to think of yourself as curators, not as judges, but as curators, and help us go out and find this amazing creative and to submit it and be part of this global discussion on advertising. So you can go on Ads Worth Spreading on TED.com and you can see all of the categories that we're looking for. Storytelling, talk, social good, those would be the kinds of categories you think that we would ask for. But there's 3 other categories that I just want you to think about. One is cultural compass. You know, you've heard a lot of talks about how things connect culturally. We're looking for interesting videos that showcase that. Creative wonder. You saw from Contagious all of the various different elements of how technology is coming to play. Show us those kinds of things that you're really excited about. And then brand bravery. This is where a brand is an expert on a subject and you can show us what their expertise is. So let me end my segment with some global insights, some things that we've learned from this TED community and what their relationship is for ideas. One of the things that I was so humbled about in the last 2 years is to see what TEDx is doing in the developing world. Now this is TEDx Kibera. They actually throw a sheet over corrugated metal and the local village people give a TED talk. It's fascinating to see how they're utilizing that, and it's amazing to see how the concept is playing itself out in the rural developing the world as well as it is in cities, and that there's an interesting thread that brings it throughout. I think I just lost my slide there. Oh, and then with Africa. In the case of Africa, you know, the themes that we are seeing in Africa is innovation in poverty, mobile technology, blogging, and agriculture. And it's interesting for us to see the kinds of issues that they're taking on and the themes of talks that they're curating. In the Middle East, we're seeing a whole push toward what's happening with political change and human rights and hope, and the kinds of groups and themes that they're coming around is really showing us how the people want to be so close to that as it relates to ideas. And in Asia, it's interesting for us to see that we have almost 800 small volunteer groups that are coming together around TED Talks, covering a number of different subjects. In Asia, we're seeing this huge trend toward youth, personal development, the role of technology, and social entrepreneurs. And I think that this is a good segue for me to turn it over to Lakshmi. And as it was said in the introduction, Lakshmi is truly the mother of TED in India, and we are so blessed to have her. She was coming to TED for over 17 years and really constantly communicated to us the importance of bringing TED to India, and just delighted to be able to see what Lakshmi and others are doing on a local level. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lakshmi. Thanks.
Yeah. Is it switched or do I need to do it? Okay. You know, I just want to share that some of the most profound journeys in our life start with very simple questions. And for me, you know, my father visited me in '95 in California. I've been away since 1983. He visited me in California. I was working at Intel, kind of showing off to him, you know, look what I have become, and introduced him to Andy Grove, took him to lunch, and just sort of a little bit of showing off. And my dad totally enjoyed my success, like all fathers do. And before he left, he asked me, he said, this is all great, but what are you doing for two of your homes? What are you doing to bring the richest democracy that's America and the largest democracy that's India? What are you doing about it? He just asked, and that was it. And in '97, he passed away. And like most of the things, you know, sometimes we have awareness when something is no longer there. And that question kept haunting me. You know, it's great I'm having a success in a career, etc., but what am I doing about the question that he asked? So I thought I should first leave Intel before I start thinking about it. So after being there for 12 years, I left. And I went on various journeys. I became a venture capitalist. I thought investing in India is the way to go about it. Then I went into nonprofit. We raised almost $30 million for various causes in India. I traveled all across the villages, putting computers in really poor schools, teaching them how to get on the web. I've done various things. And here is what I found. Is, you know, the first point that Rhonda talked about, which is youth. The young people that I met were so full of enthusiasm, so full of ideas. They had no encumbrance of any baggage. And they had all these ideas, but unfortunately not many of us were listening. And I really felt that this demographic dividend that we have will become a demographic disillusionment if we don't do something about it. So I kept thinking, I started my own company with a friend of mine, and we thought, why not bring TED to India? So I went to, because I really thought we need to tell stories. We need to tell stories of the most amazing people that are around and create new role models. Our whole goal is, when I met these youth, I asked them, what do you want to become? It was either Bill Gates or somebody else. It was either movies or money. There's nothing else. There are no role models we are giving them. But they're craving, they're looking for new role models. So they're saying, if I don't become a billionaire by the time I'm 30, am I a failure? You know, so what is my measure of success? So we started talking to them, and I really felt, you know what? We need to create new role models for them. So we brought TED to India because my ulterior motive was, if we create new role models out of here, put them on a global stage and make them really, really successful, I think we have an answer to our youth to say, here are the new generation of role models. So we brought TED to India. Chris and I curated it. We had over 50 of the most amazing talks. Frankly, I wasn't sure if anybody was going to show up. Because in 2008, when we started going to companies, going and started talking to people about TED, they would say, well, my CEO will talk only to TED, so bring TED. And I'd be like, well, there's nobody called TED. TED is a conference, and you have to just contend with this short, dark Indian woman. This is TED for you. So we went about it, and slowly people started listening. People started getting online, looking at these talks, etc. And it's sheer, you know, our friends and family, but over 1,000 people from 46 different countries showed up in Mysore at the conference. And both Chris and I were amazed at the quality of the people that we got. And our understanding always, I was living in America, Chris was living in America, TED happens in America and in England, so our thought was, we'll do one conference and that's about it. But at the end of it, I felt I found my calling. I said, I'm going to move to India. We've got to do this every year. We somehow have to get the whole country charged up, not just the country, the whole Asia, Latin America, Middle East, because the issues of the emerging world are very similar. And what I found is that I knew who are the artists, architects, technologists, business people from US, from Europe, and maybe a little bit from Pakistan, Bangladesh, or whatever. But I had no clue who are these people from the rest of Asia, who are these people from Latin America, who are the people from the Middle East. We are very similar and we don't know each other. So we said, let's do this. This is a meeting place of like-minded people. So and then Chris said, okay, we always wanted to do only one conference, but we love what you're doing. Let's come up with a new idea. we said, let's launch a new conference called INK. And INK stands for Innovation and Knowledge. It's done in association with TED. We are the exclusive partner to TED. Nobody else in the world gets this in association with TED because they help us from behind the scenes. They want us to be successful because they want all the stories we are finding from this part of the world. So it's an amazing friendship. In some ways, people said, isn't this competition? I mean, you're doing another conference here and TED. No, we believe we are one family. We are collecting stories. So that's how it started. So I told you, INK stands for Innovation and Knowledge. But more importantly, the way I see is ink is an ingredient. Whether you print, whether you write, no matter what you do, you need ink. But ink is nothing in itself. It takes shape in the hands of the person who's creating it. So we look at the conference as a platform which takes shape in the hands of the people who come there to share their stories. More importantly, in the hands of the people who choose to be part of that community. Show up in the room, listen to the talks, do something about it. Because I've been watching TED since 1994, way before it was popular, I've been part of that community. The community participates. The community says, let me do something about it. That's how things happen. So I really want to share with you really quickly what are some of the things that we're doing. So we look at INK, it's a matter of curation. It's a community. We are just a catalyst. We are not an end in itself. And what we did last year when we did our first conference, we said, you know what? It's just not enough if you do a conference. Our ethos should seep into every aspect of it. So the theme was untold stories. So we invited an artist, Raghava, and we said, if this is a theme, use conference as your canvas, paint. What do you think it should be? So he made the whole thing as cartoons. So each of the speakers had their picture as an original painting, and we displayed it all around the room as a decoration. And he painted the whole space with billboard painters, etc. So we let the artist decide what he thinks the conference should look like. Jeeves, who is a guy we met on Facebook, a young music guy from Berklee School of Music, he wrote our theme music. So like people just took on and did whatever they wanted to do with the conference, and we let them do it. So we want to leave you with, there are 3 things that we are looking for in the conference. The first one is the key word that Rhonda used, inspire. If we can inspire you with the stories that we have, you are capable of doing something way, way, way more than what we are capable of doing. So I want to tell you a story about Sunita. And also about a lot of other people. You know, you don't need to hear the stories from me. You can go to inktalks.com and listen to these people by yourself. If you want to know what a rural young person thinks about, go listen to Babar Ali, who's from West Bengal, who started a school in his backyard at the age of 8. He's the youngest headmaster in this world. You know, and if you want to hear about what a little kid in Bihar who learned, you know, who's passionate, who's ambitious, who can't get out of his bed because he has some condition, go listen to Shivam. He talks about how he learned every possible animation software from the confines of his bed, created a game, persuaded India Games to publish this game for free online at the age of 13. And you want to talk about what happens to trafficking. You know, listen to the story of Sunita Krishnan, who rescues women from trafficking and creates a home from them. And each of these are the most amazingly told, gut-wrenching stories. If you want to hear about a rural entrepreneur, if you want to see what kind of talent lays here, listen to Mansukh Prajapati, who will tell you, who will show you, he creates pans and pots and pressure cookers, even a refrigerator out of clay. Talk about sustainability. He is building an all-clay home, which doesn't require any air conditioning. So listen to these people directly from them, not through us, not through a third person. Listen to it through them. Now, when we inspire you, what happens? In the case of Sunita, what happened? She told her story on the stage, and basically the audience came together, and Google took the lead. Between all of them, they gave her enough money to build a home for the women that she rescues. What happens is that when they rescue these women, they bring them, they rent a house and put them there, and all of us, respectable people, we don't want them among us. So they keep getting shoved out of home after home after home. And she talked about it, not expecting anything. but people gave her enough money to build a home. So 18 months from the day she gave her talk, she opened her home. This is the homes that she built for all the women. And along with an amphitheater, so we can all have probably one of the AdAsia gatherings there. And, okay. Now, that's about inspiring you. Now, we need to figure out how to tell stories in an interesting way. Now, I've talked about a lot of unheard voices, unknown people. But what we are also interested in is every one of you who is known for being X are also Y, are also Z. I am a curator of INK. I am also the curator of TED India. I'm also an ex-Intel employee. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a enthusiast of movies. I mean, there's just so many things. So even when there is a famous person, we always want to know, who are you really? If I take away all the layers out of you, who are you really? So when we had James Cameron, I asked him, everybody knows about Avatar. Basically, I asked him that, I worked with him 15 years ago, very arrogant person at that time. And somehow, and I asked him that, I said, you're almost bearable now. So what was the journey, what is it that makes you this now? And he talked about being a science groupie. He said, it's about getting involved in science and being with the scientists where you realize that you have to play a level playing field. Otherwise, you can't achieve the results you want to achieve. And he said, Hollywood supports bad behavior. So that's why I behaved like that then. But when I am with my scientist friends, I realize I have to go scrub the floor, I have to do whatever it takes. So it was interesting to hear him talk about being a science groupie. So another person you're all familiar with here is Shantanu Moitra, who's a music director. He did music for Paranita, Lagero, Munna Bhai, Three Idiots, to name a few. And when I asked him to give a talk, we wanted to get to the root of who are you really? And what Shantanu is really fascinated by is to go to remote areas and collect folk music. He feels that folk music in India is just disappearing. Nobody is archiving it. So he travels to the far corners, he goes in some convoy, he hides, he does all kinds of things to go collect this music. And he brings it back because he says that when you collect music, you also preserve the wildlife. You also preserve the art. There's many, many things that come because you're preserving the music. So we have come up with an idea with him. We said, we really want to we are creating an online folk music repository, which is going to be crowdsourced. Anybody can tape a little music on their phone, geotag it, and upload it onto this website. And Shantanu and musicians will curate it. And we have planned to go to some of these places and collect this music. We actually gave this idea to one of the car companies, and we said, we'll get about 10 artists, we'll paint all the cars, and we'll go from place to place, and then we'll collect all this music. There's a celebrity factor, there is, and everywhere where whoever finds the car will upload it onto the website. So, interesting idea, but we're still waiting to hear from the car company. So, if any of you have influence, maybe some of you might, tell them about it. So, and it also preserves the textiles, the weaving. I mean, once you go for one thing, it preserves everything in that ecosystem. So we are saying, how can you make our missions interesting? If I can just make a documentary about it, I can just write an article about it. But if I start this journey and take Shantanu on this journey, the story becomes interesting, way more than Lakshmi telling it. So finally, I want to talk about impact. We really need to create an impact on the youth. That's really, really our goal at the end of the day, which means that we need to support these people and their ideas. So every year, we bring about 20 of the most amazingly diverse youth as our fellows to the conference. That's the beginning of the journey. Then we understand with them what is their desire, what do they want to become, and help them be successful in whatever they want to do. And these are a little out-of-the-box thinkers. These are not the people, in fact, it's a very interesting anecdote. We work with TED very closely to say, hey, we got to get more Indians on TED Fellows, etc. And they say the problem is most of the applications we get are so boring. They're like, I got a first rank here, I got a gold medal here. That's not what we want to hear. We want to hear what makes you out-of-box thinker, what makes you a little quirky, what makes you a little different. That's what we want to hear. Because, so we said, we will create that out of here. We will actually make the youth famous for being different instead of making them famous for following the path. So Shiloh is a 22, maybe 23-year-old young graduate, and she has a dream of making a movie. Not just any movie, an iPad movie. Actually not just a movie, it's a book. But she has, it's a movie, it's a book, it's technology, she's a complete technophobe, but learned iPad, you know, the details of iPad, and she is designing, I think, what's going to be one of the most spectacular books